I'm Elisa Bieletich Davis, and we get together here on Sunday nights to meet everyday Orthodox Christians. You know, I feel like here in the United States, in North America in general, we Orthodox, we're scattered around. You know, we're in different jurisdictions and different regions. We don't know each other very well. So I figure this is our little step toward Orthodox unity. Let's get to know one another, right? So it's kind of like coffee hour. You know, that's one of my favorite things, actually, especially if I'm visiting a different parish, not my own. But even in my own parish, honestly, like I think I know people, and I sit down next to someone and say, well, wait a minute. So what did you do before this? And all of a sudden you find out, you know, they were like jumping out of airplanes or something. Who knows? It could be anything. You never know. So that's what we're doing. We're just getting to know people here on the show. And of course, you know, we stream live on ancientfaith.com and on the AFR app. We're also on Ancient Faith Ministries Facebook page on Facebook Live. We're on YouTube. So for those of you who have never seen our faces, come over to YouTube and check us out. We are on video as well, live and then also archived. So you can find archives of the podcast on the AFR app, the Ancient Faith website, and on YouTube under Ancient Faith Ministries. So welcome to the program. And without any further ado, let me tell you about tonight's guest, because I think you're going to really enjoy this episode, because here we are getting ready for Nativity, and we have a very appropriate topic tonight, because we're talking to Peter Poulos. Now, he is also known as Santa Peter. He's the co-founder of a ministry called stnicholastelesanta.com. And you're going to want to write that down. You're going to want to know that address. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but if you have kids or grandkids or godchildren, you are going to want to know about this, because you know what he does? He'll do Zoom calls with your kids for free. He just comes on and does it. It's really lovely. It's live personalized calls over Zoom or FaceTime with Orthodox children ages 2 to 10. And of course, their families are welcome to join throughout the Christmas season. So he's entering into his busy season, but luckily he had some time to talk to us. So Peter, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it is a delight to have you. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that you're on the show. And it's perfect timing to be here at the beginning of December, because that way we make sure that everybody knows what you're up to, so that if they have someone who can benefit from a call, they will. But before we get to sort of Peter Santa, before you were Santa Peter, see, I always say it backwards. Before you were Santa Peter, you were just Peter growing up. Where were you born? Where did your story start?
My story actually started in Hartford, Connecticut. I was born in Hartford, and 78 years ago. And
is that Hartford, like of Connecticut? Like that's a nice town, actually. That's a very nice town.
Yes, Hartford, the capital. Yes.
Yeah, that's lovely. And there, I saw Mark Twain's house, and I just thought, that may have been the most beautiful neighborhood ever. It was absolutely idyllic. It was lovely.
It is. That's where I started my life, thanks to my parents. And I went to high school there, elementary school, of course, and high school. The one thing that I was always interested in was people. I love people. And I started, like everybody else, with every boy, a paper route. And started with about 50 customers in Hartford, and grew that to 250 customers by buying out a couple of paper routes around me. And it was wonderful. And I continued doing things that really would interact with people.
Neat.
When I was just turning to our Orthodox faith for a moment here, when I was about 11 years old, my grandmother passed away, God rest her soul. And my uncle was a priest in Stamford, Connecticut, a Greek Orthodox priest, Father George Poulos. And God rest his soul, he passed away just a year or two ago at age 100. And at 11 years old, he called me up and told me about what had happened to my grandmother. And he said, I'd like you to help me with the funeral service. And I said, okay. And I did that. And I assisted him. And that was my first introduction, really, to, our, besides going to church and Sunday school, etc., with the formality of our Greek Orthodox faith. And I did that, and I remained in the altar. I actually went to my parish priest in Hartford and said to him that I'd like to serve in the altar, and I served as an altar boy until I graduated from high school.
Well,
And
so when your grandmother passed, your uncle invited you to come serve in the altar, but you had been going to church, but you had not served in the altar before.
Correct.
Do you feel, and I imagine it's both, right? Was it such a powerful experience because it was your first time in the altar, or was it really more powerful because it was so personal and it sort of, instead of just showing up and, and the chanters are chanting as usual, suddenly it's all different, right?
It was actually both, at least.
Yeah.
It was very meaningful for me to assist my uncle in the altar and to also be there for my family. And so it was both very, very meaningful. But that experience really, I think, hit me because as I continued after high school, I entered seminary, and I went to Holy Cross, Greek Orthodox Theological School in Brookline, and I started to study for the priesthood.
Oh, wow.
At that time, it was strictly Hellenic college. That was 1965 when I entered. And it was only Holy Cross. There was no Hellenic college.
Right.
2 years later, it changed to Hellenic college for the first 4 years. And then, of course, the Divinity School for the last 3 years for the Masters of Divinity. So I was in my
Holy Cross, and then you were at Hellenic, and then you were at Holy Cross again, but you never moved.
Well, not really. Not really. I never moved, that's for sure. But I was always in Brookline. But I was there for my first 2 years when it was just strictly Holy Cross. And then in my third year, my junior year, the transition happened to Hellenic College. And that's when not only men were admitted at Hellenic College, but women as well. And at that time, I thought about, my path, my career, my path, and thought, I think I'm going to get a degree in something else and not pursue the theological degree. And I did. We had some outstanding professors that were brought in by our Archdiocese for Hellenic College. We had professors from Brandeis University, Boston University, Harvard, terrific professors. And so I started to study the behavioral sciences, psychology, sociology, and anthropology. That was what I majored in for my last 2.5 years. And I received my degree.
That's the undergraduate degree.
Pardon?
So you decided...
The undergraduate degree.
Because the original plan would have just been to get 2 theology degrees, but then you thought, well, no, let me study behavioral sciences first now that I have options. And then, but did you stay then to get the Master's of Divinity still, or did you take a new path?
No, I took a totally different path. I did.
Oh, wow. So
and
what was that decision process for you? Like what was it that made you real? Because, you know, a lot of times people go to seminary feeling called to be a priest, and then they get there and they realize, oh, maybe I'm not really called to it. I love it, but I'm not supposed to do it. And how did that happen for you? How did you feel that or sense it?
Well, I think the transition from to Hellenic College from strictly Holy Cross, as Holy Cross Greek Orthodox Theological School, it was all men. We all wore cassocks. We all went to chapel in the morning, chapel at night, and went to classes. We did our jobs every day. It was referred to as katharismo, a cleaning and doing our daily jobs as part of our training as theologians and future priests. And when it changed to Hellenic College, the atmosphere was a little bit different, and I kind of thought through it and said, no, I think I'm just going to try, something else. And I had the opportunity. I was lucky enough where I had the opportunity to study the sociology, anthropology, psychology that I needed to with the professors that were brought in at that time for Hellenic College, which was terrific. As a matter of fact, because I had taken all 3 theology courses for my first 2 years before the undergraduates came in for Hellenic College. When I switched over to Hellenic College, I had all my qualifications as far as my course of study, my courses that I studied fulfilled. So my last 2.5 years there, because I had all the prerequisite courses, I ended up very luckily taking all of my courses, psychology, sociology, anthropology. The vast majority were done one-on-one with just me and the professor.
Oh,
which was
being there at the beginning is a really good moment to be there. Oh, I see what you're saying, because everybody else at Hellenic was coming in as freshmen. So they're all taking prerequisite classes, but you were the only one who was an upper division student in there, at least in your major. Wow.
Right.
Oh, that's handy. That's good timing. Look at that. So you had one-on-one instruction with all of these wonderful professors.
I did. I remember my psychology professor, Dr. John Papajohn. He lived in the next town, Jamaica Plain, and our class, my class with him, was on Saturday morning, and from 8 until 11 o'clock. I walked from seminary to his home, which was about a 45-minute walk or so, and I would have breakfast at 8 o'clock with his family. Sit down on Saturday morning and had breakfast with Dr. Papajohn and his family. And then at 9 o'clock, we went upstairs to his study, and that's when the course began, all of the psychology courses that I took from him. And we spent the next 3 hours doing psychology.
What a great,
a wonderful experience.
I'm sure. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really neat. Huh. So you were saying that the kind of the atmosphere changed when it became an undergraduate college, which makes sense because it sounds like it was almost monastic. Not really, because a lot of the people wanted to find wives and become priests. They weren't really monks, but it sounds like it was kind of this very peaceful monastic environment, and maybe it just sort of smoothly was delivering you to the priesthood. And then when that was interrupted, it was all of a sudden like, oh, well, wait, who am I and what do I want? Is that what it feels like? That it was almost like so simple at first that you didn't have to think about whether you really wanted it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And, that was an interesting time in our history in America, because in 1965, when I started until I graduated in '69, we were involved in Vietnam, and so that was a very interesting, time in the history of America, and so there were a few classmates of mine who actually had made their own decision to leave seminary and join the military. And they did that at that time because the draft was in full. Everybody had their draft card, and we had draft numbers.
Yep.
And so a lot of, not a lot, but, quite a few men left seminary to join the military as well. So minds were changing, for different reasons.
Right.
Different reasons.
Right. It's a lot of upheaval in those years. Did you feel the upheaval in the same way, do you think, at Hellenic and Holy Cross, or was it maybe worse outside and more peaceful in there, or what do you think?
Well, I think the seminary was very peaceful.
Yeah. It's a good during those years, maybe. I mean, I feel like another university, literally almost any other university, would have been a lot more, I don't know the word for it, upheaval is what comes to mind, right? Just sort of a lot.
Well, very active as far as student activity, Elisa.
Mm-hmm.
The objecting to the Vietnam War or what have you, where, at Holy Cross, ours was a life that really revolved around church. It revolved around our faith. And that's where the emphasis was. We started the day and we ended the day in church and with prayer. And so there was definitely a difference between going to a quote-unquote normal college and being at or Hellenic College.
For sure.
And then I graduated from Hellenic College, and when I did that, I was started looking for a job. Typical, college grad now with my degree in the behavioral sciences. I said, well, I know people, and I was always interested in selling and sales. I love sales and marketing. And when I was 16 years old, I was the youngest full of brush salesman in New England at 16. And I was knocking on doors then, introducing full of brush products to the neighborhood. And so I always enjoyed sales, and I thought that I could get a sales and marketing position in Boston. So I started knocking on doors in Boston. And I came across a sign on a building, and it said HCA, Hotel Corporation of America. And I said, now that sounds interesting. Hotel. So I walked in and I went up to the receptionist and I asked her, I said, do you hire salesmen? And she said, oh, yes, we do. And I said, wonderful. I said, I'd like to apply for a sales position. And she said, great, no problem. Here's an application. And she gave me the application. The application was 4 pages long. I filled out page 1, which was your name, your address, your social security number, the basic stuff, and then turned to page 2 and 3 and 4, and it was all on your hotel experience.
Oh.
Well, I didn't have hotel experience at Holy Cross or Hellenic College.
Right.
So I left it blank. I returned the application and I sat down and waited. And the receptionist turned and said, "Is this all you have? You don't have any hotel experience?" I said, "No, ma'am." And just at that time, this man came through, and I'll never forget him. And he was a black man who approached the desk, and she handed him my application, and she told him that I was interested in sales. And he looked at the application and said, "Sales?" And I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "I love sales." And I said, "I'm going to be the best salesman that you ever hired." And he said, "Really?" He said, "Well, come with me." So I followed him down the hallway, and we went into his office. And when we went into his office, I almost fainted dead away because it was huge. And he had a conference table in there with about a dozen chairs, and he had, of course, a beautiful desk and gorgeous office. Unbeknownst to me, this gentleman was director of executive placement for the Hotel Corporation of America.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, talk about being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, no.
And we spoke for a few minutes, and he said, "You want to go to lunch?" I said, "Oh, sure." So we went to lunch, and nothing like a free lunch. So,
Right? You're just fresh out of college looking for a job? Absolutely. I'll take lunch. Sure.
Exactly. And we did. We had lunch. We had a great conversation for about an hour. And the last thing he said was, I'll give you a call. I said, "Okay, great. I appreciate it." He said, "May I reach you at this number?" I said, "Yes." I said, "That's my parents' home in Hartford, Connecticut, and I'll be going back there in a day." And he said, "Great." He said, "I'll call you in a couple of days." And I went back to Hartford. I was with my parents and my sister. And 2 days later, the phone rang, and it was this gentleman. And he said, "Peter," he says, have you ever been to New Orleans, Louisiana?" I said, "No, sir." He said, "Well, we have 2 hotels in New Orleans, the Royal Orleans Hotel and the Royal Sonesta Hotel. And they're both located in the French Quarter. And I'd like you to go down there tomorrow and interview with this man, this person, that person." And he gave me about 8 names. He said, "I've already made a reservation for you." He said, "So you fly out from Bradley and Hartford directly to New Orleans, and you'll stay for as long as you want. You'll stay at the Royal Orleans Hotel, and which is one of our hotels, which is looking for a sales manager." I said, "Okay." So the next day, I had planned to fly down to New Orleans. My mother, God rest her soul, she turned to me and said, what was all that? And I said, well, I just got an interview at a hotel in New Orleans and Louisiana. And she said, New Orleans, Louisiana, where is that? I mean, she had never been out of New England.
Right.
And, so
you're like,
I
I don't
pointed
know, Mom,
out
it's
New
way
Orleans.
far south. It's way down there.
Yeah, exactly. And I pointed it out on the map, and she said, that far? And I said, well, yes, Mom. But that's okay. We'll be in touch. I'll be back. And so that was that. And I went down to New Orleans. And the next day, and got so excited that I went through all the interviews just at 100 miles an hour. As soon as one was over, I went to the next person. And the interviews took place at both of their hotels, the Royal Orleans and the Royal Sonesta Hotel. So I interviewed with a number of different people. And 2 days later, I was done with the interviews, and I was offered a position of sales manager at the Royal Orleans Hotel.
Wow.
And I said, well, that's great. I need to go back to Hartford and get my things.
Yep.
And they said, fine, no problem. How long will it be? I said, well, just a couple of days. That's fine. So I did. I went back to Hartford, packed up, and which was very limited as far as what went into my suitcase, because the only thing that I had was black suits, black tie, white shirts, straight out of seminary. That was it. So I flew back and started my hotel career in New Orleans, and that continued for 42 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, you didn't come on as a salesman like you thought you were going to. You came on as the manager of sales at a huge, beautiful.
Well, it was a sales manager. Yeah, it was a sales manager. Sales manager, the director of sales and marketing was the number one position in the sales office. Mm-hmm. And then everybody underneath him had the title of sales manager.
Oh, I gotcha.
So
did you manage?
I was one of four sales. Yeah, I was one of four sales managers.
Oh, okay.
So I learned that
it's funny. Anyone who manages people is not called a manager, and then all of the people who do not manage people are all called managers. It's kind of a funny thing, but a lot of businesses are like that. Very confusing. But what were you going to say?
So I continued with that for, as I said, 42 years.
Wow.
Had many great experiences. I had gone through my first year. I went through a presidential visit and with Nixon, and at our hotel. He stayed at our hotel, and which was an experience with the Secret Service and what have you. And then I went through 11 vice presidential visits with Spiro T. Agnew, who was vice president of the United States at the time.
He came
and a fellow.
Oh, no, there were multiple.
11 times in New Orleans in 1 year.
Holy smokes,
yeah.
He loved that place. What was he doing?
He did. I don't know. I didn't ask.
I feel like I want to look up what kind of crazy things were happening with Spiro Agnew in New Orleans.
Yeah, in New Orleans. And crazy, New Orleans was crazy. I have to tell you.
I think it always has been.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful in the 60s when I was there. In the 70s. I went in 1970 January, and it was beautiful. I loved New Orleans. It was great.
You know what?
And
we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back because I want to hear a little bit more about what New Orleans was like in the early 70s because, I do think it's always been crazy, but I bet it's changed a lot. So we will be right back.
The existence of fools for Christ in the Orthodox tradition mystifies many people, even some within the Orthodox Church itself. People often wonder what purpose these sometimes comical and oftentimes tragically misunderstood saints serve in the life of the Church, especially given their unconventional and seemingly bizarre behaviors. In Holy Fools by Oswin Creighton, we begin to gain a better understanding of these saints' curious manner of serving Christ as we learn about the extraordinary lives of 20 of the most well-known fools for Christ in a series of brief hagiographies. Available now at store.ancientfaith.com. Again, that is store.ancientfaith.com.
And welcome back to Everyday Orthodox. We're here tonight with Peter Poulos, also known as Santa Peter, of course. And he actually looks a lot like Santa. If you're on YouTube, you'll understand exactly why he is known as Santa Peter. But so, okay, we were just talking about, so you started with the Hotel Corporation of America, which is a huge company, right? I mean, they own all kinds. I think they owned the Plaza Hotel, right? At that time. I mean, they were like... Yeah. All the great hotels where that is such a neat thing to be working for them. So then you're in New Orleans, though. How would you, I mean, I don't know if you've been to New Orleans in the last 10 years or so, but what would you say would be different or similar about New Orleans in the 70s?
Well, I think it's got more crazy.
Everything has got
New Orleans. New Orleans was, known as the city that cared for God. And as the city that cared for God, it was nonstop. It was 24 hours a day. When I left work, didn't matter what time, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, people were out in the streets and, everyone was there. It was a wonderful experience being there in New Orleans. I made some wonderful friends. Al Hurt and Pete Fountain, famous jazz musicians. Armin Hug, another jazz musician. These people had their clubs right on Bergen Street, which was 1 block away from my hotel. And they became good friends. And I really got to appreciate jazz as music while I was in New Orleans. It was a terrific experience. Johnny Mathis checked in my hotel one day, and I happened to be manager on duty when he checked in, and they called me from the front desk and said, "Mr. Mathis is checking in." So I hustled on up to my office, and I said, "Mr. Mathis, my name is Peter Poulos. Welcome to the Royal Orleans Hotel. We're happy to have you here. If there's anything I can do for you, just let the front desk know, and they'll reach me." And he said, "Poulos? That's Greek, isn't it?" And I said, "Yep, as a matter of fact, it is." And he said, "I'm Greek." I said, "Yeah."
I didn't know he
I
was
heard
Greek.
that. Yeah.
Well,
Johnny Mathis was
right? Like we always know who's secretly Orthodox or who's secretly Greek or Serbian or whatever, right? But I didn't know that about Johnny Mathis. That's interesting.
He was an orphan. He and his brother were orphans, and they were adopted by a Greek family whose last name was Mathis. And
there you go. There you go.
That's how he became Greek. And he was an amazing guest. And he as a matter of fact, a few years later, I had left New Orleans. I had moved from New Orleans to Dallas, Texas, and I had joined the Fairmont Hotel Company in Dallas. And that particular hotel had a huge nightclub type of room where they had Las Vegas entertainers. Before they went to Las Vegas and opened up their show there, they came to Dallas and the other couple of Fairmont hotels and practiced their act and what they were going to be doing in Vegas. Johnny Mathis happened to come in and to be the entertainer while I was at one of the entertainers while I was at the Royal Orleans. And I walked into the club room, which was called the Venetian Room. And I walked into the Venetian Room one afternoon showing a client the room itself and saying, you know, for your convention, when you have your convention here, you can utilize this room. You know, this is available with Name Entertainment, Las Vegas Entertainment. And when we walked in, and again, this was like 2 or 3 years later after I had originally met Johnny, we walked in the room and he was on stage and he looked down and he saw me and I didn't have this beard. And he looked down and he said, "Hey, Peter, how are you?" And I said, "I'm fine. How are you, Johnny?" I mean, the man was amazing. I couldn't believe that he remembered our meeting. And so there were many interesting experiences in New Orleans, that's for sure. And as a matter of fact, when I retired from the hotel business, I spent a year or two trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my retirement. I mean, my whole retirement. And it was quite boring for the first year or two. I didn't know what to do with myself.
Well, and you're so social, right? Like you were so accustomed to meeting a lot of people and I'm sure in the hotel industry, it was just in sales in particular, you're constantly interacting with people. Were you just like when you retired, was it just kind of like you at home being quiet?
It was. Of course, I was married, and but yes, it was quiet, and you're absolutely right, Lisa. You know, it was boring, and so about a year or two after I retired from the hotel industry, I was asked by my church if I would play the role of Santa for the Christmas event at the church that year. And that was in Houston, Texas.
Wait,
and
were you at Annunciation in Houston? Where were you?
I'm sorry?
Were you at Annunciation, Greek Orthodox Church in Houston?
I was.
Ah,
I was.
Okay. And did you have the white beard then? Had you just grown a white beard? Is that why they picked you?
No.
No. No, they just looked at you and were like, you've got kind of a Santa air about you. And so they
you got the cheek. You got the cheek.
That's it. That's exactly it. Was it Irene Cassis who asked you to do that, or was it somebody else?
Well, it was, I don't know if it was Irene or not. I don't remember. But Irene, she was wonderful. She was in charge of the religious education at Annunciation, I believe.
Yep.
And she and the other people there were absolutely fantastic. I had all my children. I have 3 children, and all 3 of them were born in Houston. And we all went to the Annunciation. The second Greek Orthodox Church in Houston, St. Basil, was not built at that time. So
Right. That's kind of
we all went to Annunciation.
Ah, neat.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So they asked you to be Santa. And that's just like divine intervention right there, because they couldn't have had any idea what they were about to kickstart. So were you reluctant to play Santa, or did you just think that sounded like a lot of fun?
No, it sounded like a lot of fun to me because, to be honest, I had, while I was in the hotel industry, I had traveled to many, many cities. And moved to many cities on a temporary basis and on a full-time basis. And one of the things that I got hooked on, I was in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and at a hotel in Parkersburg, and I was looking for something to do on a weeknight, and I opened up the paper, and they had an advertisement for actors wanted. And there was a local community theater, and they said, and I looked at it, and I said, I think I'm going to go and try. Why not? I'll go audition for a role. And I did that. And the play was The Odd Couple, and which Walter Matthau, was in.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Tony Randall,
yeah.
and I played, and I actually got a part. I played one of the poker buddies, because in that film they were playing poker, and sometimes, and so I played one of the poker buddies. And the first time that I stepped out on stage to take my place, and we started the play, I had a line, and when I said the line, people laughed.
Oh.
And that was an inspiration. The bug bit me right there. I loved the fact that people were laughing. And I said, I think I'm going to like this acting. And I actually continued. Before I retired, I continued acting. And after I retired, I really turned up the jets on acting in community theaters. And I was in a number of great plays. I actually played the role of Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof, and in one of the plays, and it was magnificent. I did musicals. I did all kinds of plays, serious plays, and comedies and what have you. So with Santa, I felt like that was a natural. All of a sudden, I'm acting again, but I'm acting as Santa. Well, about 4 years ago, what happened was one of my classmates from seminary called me, and he said, Peter, he said, we have a group from seminary, classes, anybody who's in a class in the 60s or 70s, we get on the phone every Monday for 1 hour on Zoom. And somebody was asking about you, and I said, I'll call in. And this gentleman called me and said, would you be on Zoom with us? And I said, sure, I'll jump on next Monday. And I got on that phone call, and as soon as I got on, I looked like this because I was playing Santa in my local community for quite a few years.
Right.
And when I got on that Zoom call, one of the guys said, man, you look like Santa Claus. I said, well, as a matter of fact, I am Santa. and I explained to them, I said, let me explain my dream. My dream now, at my age, is to play Santa, but also to have priests in our Greek Orthodox communities throughout America recommend someone from their church, a man from their church, and play the role of Santa and help me make telephone calls to children ages 2 to 10 during the Christmas season. And I explained to them that's what I wanted to do. Well, within an hour after getting off that phone call, I received another phone call from Father Cosmas Caravellas, who is the Greek Orthodox priest in Annapolis, Maryland. And he called and he said, Peter, I was on the Zoom call. I heard what you said. I heard what you want to do, and I want to support you. I want to help you. And I said, fantastic. And I felt like the Holy Spirit was really guiding us because, you know, I had Father Caravellas, Father Cosmas, as a priest who could work the priest side. And here I am, a layman playing Santa. I could work the Santa side with all other laymen who would volunteer to be Santa. And it was the perfect storm, so to speak. And we began. And what happened was that COVID hit. COVID-19 hit. Mm-hmm. And in March of 2020, we were all asked to quarantine ourselves in our homes. Kids were not going to school. People weren't going to work. And we were truly limited. And I, as Santa, I had local gigs, local families that I went and saw during the Christmas season before COVID. I called them up and said, I'm sorry, I can't do this any longer, or not for this year, for December. And they understood because they were quarantined as well. And so that's when we started the St. Nicholas Tele Santa program. And I got online. I had received a phone call from my doctor. And his nurse called and said, you have an appointment tomorrow, Peter, with Doc, but he doesn't want you to come into the office because because of COVID. And so you're going to have a telehealth call. I said, telehealth? What's that? We didn't know what telehealth was, right. It was 4 years ago.
Right.
And he called. We had that call. And I said, now here's an idea. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I got on the internet. And that's when we started the St. Nicholas Tele Santa. We got the website and we started the St. Nicholas Tele Santa. And the first year, we had 32 Santas.
Wow.
From Orthodox churches coast to coast. And it was magnificent. The priests, they recommend someone from their church, so they vetted the person. They know they're a good Orthodox Christian, that they attend service, that they, are there, that they love children, and that they have a personality, that they can interact with people. And that's just what we were looking for. And so we started 4 years ago, and this past year phone calls.
Kidding.
And we always start our phone call on St. Nicholas Day, December the 6th, which is coming up this week. We start our phone calls, and it's very easy for parents, grandparents, godparents to register their children. All they need to do is go to stnicholastelasanta.com, and on our website, there is a parental form, which we ask them to fill out. And it has the names of the children, beside the parent's name and their contact information. Beside that, because we need to contact the parent and speak with them. It has information about the children. And we ask questions on that questionnaire like, what has your child done that you're proud of them for doing this year? So when we get them on the phone, we say, Santa is really proud of you because we know, Santa knows what you did. You did this year. That was fantastic.
Wow.
And of course, the parents have another question that says, what does your child need to improve upon to keep him off of Santa's naughty list?
There you go.
So then we can turn to the child and say, you're on my nice list. You know that because you did that. But you need to pick up your toys. You need to, clean up your room. You need to, do this or that. Because the parents have written that down on the form. And, you want to stay off of the naughty list. And so we kind of help the parents get what they need to get done. And then, and we personalize it to, do they have any pets, a dog, a cat, or what have you? What's the name of the dog? Because Santa has to know everything. So as Santas, we use that whole form as our script. And it's fantastic. And it's wonderful. And it's
really neat.
Very personalized. Each phone call lasts from 5 to 10 minutes with the child. So it's not like you go to the mall, for a quick 1-minute picture,
right.
And the kids don't have a chance to interact with Santa. They interact with us for as long as they need to. And it's fun because they're on their iPad, they're on their smartphone, they're on their parents' computer. They see us as you're seeing me right now with this background. And, of course, we're all dressed in red, Santa hat,
of course.
Santa glasses. And if the men don't have a beard, well, they can get a theatrical beard, a white
right.
Santa beard.
A nice
and they have that, and it works. And it works very well with the children.
That's neat.
It's fantastic. As a matter of fact, we had an iconographer that Father Cosmas had contacted, who does iconography in churches around the world. Leonidas Dimakopoulos. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you.
Yeah, hold it up for the audience that's watching on YouTube. You can see, and for everybody else, it's a very beautiful image of it's the Christ child, the nativity scene in the cave, but you have Santa Claus and Saint Nicholas, right? The Bishop of Myra there in the foreground. That's
exactly right.
That's beautiful.
And the iconographer painted this icon especially for the St. Nicholas Tele Santa ministry.
That's neat.
As you described, Santa with St. Nicholas, and St. Nicholas handing Santa a cross and a present, because Santa Claus is nothing more than a disciple of St. Nicholas.
Right.
And St. Nicholas was a disciple of Christ. And Santa Claus continues to spread the word. So when we go and we interact with the kids, we make sure that we tell them that the relationship between Santa Claus and St. Nicholas. And St. Nicholas he was a real person.
Right.
He was a part of our church, our Orthodox Church. When everyone says Merry Christmas and they see Santa Claus and they see St. Nicholas, or they say St. Nicholas, they're referring to St. Nicholas of Myra and our church. And I think it's a great ministry for us to spread the word about our Orthodox Church, not only to our children, but as I walk down the street, I get stopped everywhere. Grocery store, doesn't matter, because the kids see me and they do a double take. And I stop and I greet them, we talk, and it's magnificent. It's great.
That's wonderful. I was going to ask, how you put St. Nicholas and Santa together. Because, when my kids were little, I was worried about that. I thought, well, are they going to think, well, if Santa Claus, as they get older and they don't believe anymore, will they then be confused about St. Nicholas? Because St. Nicholas is definitely real and we don't want to confuse anything. But that's neat to sort of to frame it as Santa Claus being a disciple of St. Nicholas. That makes a lot of sense, a follower. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really neat. Now, when you all, do some of them not know who St. Nicholas is, or do a lot of them know and are they aware of the connection between the two? What do you see mostly?
Well, they know St. Nicholas because I'll ask them, we will ask them, the Santa who calls them, because I assign the calls, to the different Santas, and they make these calls. And we'll ask the children, do you know that my other name? Oh, yes, St. Nicholas, St. Nicholas.
There you go.
And so they're well aware. And the reason for the season, don't you? Why do we celebrate Christmas? It's not all about presents. It's about love, because that's what Christ taught us. He taught us about love for our families, love for our friends, love for our fellow human beings everywhere in the world. And the kids, they get into it. They really do. And I had a parent wrote to us, and it's on his letter, or a part of the letter is on our website under testimonials. And because his kids wanted, on the form, he had mentioned that the children had learned to say the Lord's Prayer, and they were 5 years old and 7 years old. And so when I got on the phone call with them, and they were from Australia, we made calls all over the world. They were from Australia. I said to them, I understand that you all know the Lord's Prayer. And they said, oh, yes, yes. I said, great. Why don't you say it along with Santa, St. Nicholas? Why don't you say it with me? And they said it together. We all said it together, and it was magnificent. It was great. And the father wrote us and said, I want you to call me every year.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it's just so wonderful, right? Because we have all these beautiful Christmas traditions, and sometimes they feel disconnected from what we do at church. And, especially because our orthodoxy is so quiet and in the corner, it feels different. And to unite those together is very beautiful. What a wonderful ministry, Peter. It's beautiful. And I want to remind our audience, it's St. Nicholas tele-santa.com. I've put it on our Everyday Orthodox Facebook page. You can just link right off of there. And also, of course, if you just search St. Nicholas Tele Santa, it just comes right up. And it's just wonderful. What a beautiful, and congratulations on how big this has gotten. I mean, it's just fantastic. Congratulations, Peter. And thank you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you for your help. Thank you for your help, and thank you for having me on. And I have to apologize. I didn't give you a chance to ask any questions.
That's all right.
I just kept on talking. I'm sorry.
No, if you can tell your story, you don't need me to interrupt. That's great. That works out just fine. I can sit back and relax. I've got no problem with that. But Peter, thank you so much for coming on the program tonight.
You're more than welcome. God bless.
Thank you. And thank you to our audience. Thanks for joining us. And come on back next week and we'll meet another Everyday Orthodox Christian. Good night.